Have you ever seen a green moon, maybe after a 17-hour drive through the heart of nowhere? Meet Gary, our protagonist, a man with a mission driving back east for Christmas. His pockets weren't deep enough for a plane ticket, and he thought, why not seize this chance to see the real America? The America that exists beyond gleaming city skylines and crowded tourist spots. As it turns out, the real America, at least from Gary's perspective, was an unending stretch of highway, flanked by miles and miles of scenic nothingness. The isolation was palpable. Apart from his own vehicle, the highway was a deserted expanse, mirroring the barren landscape around it. With the clock on the dashboard reading 2:17 in the morning, the only company he had was the blare of Donde está Santa Claus on the radio. The world seemed to be at a standstill, and even the moon appeared to be playing tricks on his weary eyes. For a fleeting moment he could have sworn it was green, but a second look revealed the familiar white glow, just good old cheese in the sky, as they say. 17 hours on the road can play tricks on your mind, transfiguring mundane objects into oddities. Rubbing his face with his palms, Gary tried to dispel the drowsiness creeping into his eyes. The graveyard of 5-hour energy containers on the passenger seat was a testament to his battle against sleep. He reached out instinctively for another, only to curse under his breath as he remembered he'd downed the last one about 80 miles back. He needed to rest, to refuel both his car and himself. His body was begging for sleep, his stomach grumbled for food, and the gas gauge was inching dangerously close to the empty mark. And then, like a mirage in the desert, a sign appeared. It promised everything he needed: a place to rest, food, gas, and a peculiar attraction. The biggest vacuum in the continental US. A sign promising all he needed, plus the biggest vacuum in the continental US, was an offer too good to pass up. Imagine pulling into a gas station in the middle of the night, the only light for miles around. That's exactly what Gary did. The neon sign flickering in the darkness, casting an otherworldly glow on the barren landscape. It was as if the station itself was a beacon, a lonely island in the sea of darkness that surrounded it. As he rolled his car to a stop, the gravel crunched under the weight of his tired vehicle. He looked around, the eerie silence of the night wrapping around him like a shroud. No other cars, no other souls, just him and this lonesome outpost. The place seemed to hold its breath. The only sound was the low hum of the fluorescent lights and the distant croak of a solitary frog from somewhere in the enveloping darkness. The station was oddly empty. No attendant, no late-night drifters, no truckers on their long hauls. Just the hollow echo of his own footsteps on the concrete floor. The shelves inside were stocked, the fridges hummed, but there was an unsettling absence of life. The flickering lights cast long, dancing shadows that twisted and turned, creating ghostly shapes that played tricks on his tired eyes. He filled up his car with the cold, metallic gas pump, the smell of gasoline heavy in the air. He could feel the chill of the night seeping into his bones, a stark contrast to the warm hum of the idling engine. As he walked back to his car, he couldn't shake off a lingering sense of unease. It was as if the gas station was a stage set for a play yet to begin, the actors yet to arrive. He felt a shiver run down his spine, a prickling sensation of being watched, of being not alone. He shrugged it off, attributing it to the fatigue. After all, he'd been on the road for 17 long hours. He climbed back into his car, ready to leave the strange place behind, but as he glanced in the rearview mirror, he could have sworn he saw a flicker of movement, a shadowy figure in the corner of his vision. It was just a pit stop, he mumbled to himself, dismissing the strange feeling. Or so he thought. What would you do if the only other soul you encounter is as out of place as the green moon? Out there, under the vastness of the Midwestern sky, Gary found himself at a deserted gas station. The kind of place you'd swear was conjured right out of a dream. The neon lights buzzed with an eerie intensity, casting long, strange shadows that danced and shifted with the wind. As he stepped out of his car, the biting chill of the night air nipped at his skin, a harsh reminder of his solitude and the strangeness of the hour. At the counter, an old man greeted him. He was a peculiar figure, his eyes carrying 1,000 untold stories. His face was a roadmap of wrinkles, each one a testament to the passage of time. He had a smile that felt more like a grimace, a twisted, forced expression that seemed to sit uncomfortably on his weathered face. His voice, when he spoke, was like gravel underfoot, raspy, yet oddly comforting. Gary couldn't shake the feeling of unease. There was a disquieting aura about the old man, something that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. He was as out of place as the green moon Gary thought he'd seen earlier. The old man moved slowly, each action painstakingly deliberate, as if he were performing a rehearsed dance. He filled up a cup with coffee, his gnarled hands steady as a surgeon's, and slid it across the counter to Gary. As he sipped the bitter brew, Gary couldn't help but feel a sense of dread creeping up his spine. He was a stranger in a strange land, far from home, far from anything familiar. The old man's cryptic smile seemed to mock him, a silent reminder of his isolation and vulnerability. The silence was broken by the hum of the old man's voice, a low, haunting lullaby that filled the desolate gas station. He spoke of long-forgotten tales, of lost travellers and eerie green moons, his words weaving a tapestry of fear and intrigue. Gary listened, entranced by the old man's tales, his heart pounding in his chest. Nothing was as it seemed, not even the moon. "Have you ever stumbled upon a secret that should have remained hidden?" Gary had. He found himself standing at the threshold of a revelation that was as unexpected as it was eerie. Just when he thought he'd find respite in a nondescript pit stop, he was plunged into an uncanny mystery. The biggest vacuum in the continental US wasn't a metaphor. It was literal. It was a gaping chasm, a void that sucked in everything around it, an enigma that defied all logic. As the moon bathed the surroundings in an eerie glow, the vacuum seemed to pulsate with an otherworldly energy. It was as if it was alive, as if it had a heartbeat, and Gary felt an inexplicable pull towards it, a force that seemed to tug at the very core of his being. The vacuum wasn't just a physical entity, it was a doorway to a realm that was not meant for human eyes. It was a portal to a dimension where the rules of reality warped and twisted into grotesque shapes, where time and space danced to a tune that was haunting and discordant. As he peered into the abyss, he felt a wave of terror wash over him. It was like staring into the face of the unknown, like glimpsing into the heart of a cosmic horror. It was an encounter that was both chilling and mesmerizing, a dance with the macabre that sent shivers down his spine. And then the moon turned green. Not a trick of his tired eyes, not a figment of his imagination, but a tangible, terrifying reality. It was a signal, a sign that something was about to happen, something that would make his journey unforgettable, something that would change his life forever. The truth, as they say, is stranger than fiction. And Gary was about to learn this in the most unsettling way possible. He was on the precipice of an event that would disrupt the fabric of his existence, an event that would redefine his understanding of the world. The truth is often stranger and more terrifying than fiction. What do you do when reality turns out to be more horrifying than any nightmare? Gary's world was spinning, his heart pounding like a hammer against his ribcage. The revelation was too much to process. The moon wasn't made of cheese, it was something far more sinister. The reality he had known, had trusted, was ripped away from him in an instant. He had to escape, to get away from this place, but the more he tried to distance himself, the deeper he was drawn into the mystery. It was as if an invisible force was pulling him, keeping him tethered to the spot. The world around him was a whirlwind of confusion and fear, but he was the eye of the storm, trapped in the center of it all. His mind raced, thoughts whizzing past like cars on a highway. He needed to make sense of the situation, to figure out what was happening, but the more he delved into the mystery, the more questions arose. Every answer led to another question, every truth to another lie. It was a labyrinth of deceit and illusion, and he was lost in its depths. He was alone, isolated in a world that no longer made sense. The loneliness was suffocating, pressing down on him like a heavy weight. He longed for the comfort of familiarity, for the simple joy of a known world. But there was no going back. He was a stranger in a strange land, adrift in a sea of uncertainty. But even in the face of such adversity, Gary found a spark of hope. He clung to it like a lifeline, using it to navigate through the darkness. He was a survivor, a fighter, and he wouldn't let this ordeal defeat him. He would find a way out. He had to. And so his journey continued. Not a journey of miles and landscapes, but one of discovery and self-realization. A journey that tested his strength, his courage, and his resolve. A journey that changed him, molded him, made him the man he was destined to be. Sometimes the journey isn't as important as the stories we gather along the way. This was Gary's story, his journey, and it was far from over. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment and share with your friends. Until the next journey.